I was talking to a guy today about it, and he asked me what I thought, and I started to go, kind of stutter, and he was like, "You don't need to say anymore. That's actually the correct response. What do you think about this election?" Because that's really the way I feel. Now, I'm glad that we're an Arkansas-focused show, and I'm glad that we're trying to change the hearts and minds of 3 million people versus 300 million people. We need to try to make Arkansas as limited government of a state as we can, and that is why this Reagan speech that I listened to has taken on a greater meaning today because of the state of Arkansas, because of my home, because I care about the future of this place so much, because I care about sovereignty and the 10th Amendment, because I don't believe that the citizens of Arkansas should be subjugated just because we have a minority of Republicans and all of the Democrats trying to commit us to a fiscal future that is uncertain, that is full of more dependency, more government, and spending money we don't have. It's a big deal. And so I put a couple of tweets out. Let's see. You can follow me on Twitter at PaulHarrell1776. Implementing Obamacare in Arkansas brings us closer to the left's goal of socialized medicine. Will anyone stand up and stop it? That was the first tweet after I listened to the 10 or 12 minutes of the speech. We're not listening to that much of the speech. I've got it trimmed down. That was my initial response. I thought, I don't understand how somebody can say, well, Paul, I'm a Republican and I'm a conservative on all of these other issues, but when it comes to implementing Obamacare, I am going to have to go along to get along, and I believe in it, or I think we can make it better, or and whatever the real reason is. I don't see how they can. Inconsistencies really bother me, and I don't see how they can get over that inconsistency, much less the plan of the left is for government to provide for our every need. That is their plan. I'm going to say it again. Maybe there are some Republicans listening who are more inclined to not recognize the pitfalls of big government, but maybe you'll hear me. Their plan is for the government to provide as much, everything that we need. Now, that includes a couple of different approaches. There's the direct welfare approach, right? There's the direct involvement in our lives. Then there's the other involvement that I feel like many Republicans want to stick their head in the sand on. And the other involvement is controlling private businesses. If the government's controlling private businesses, they're not really private anymore. If they're not really private anymore, then it has nothing to do with the free market. So you might as well take that argument and throw it out the window because it's cheap, it's phony, and it's all about a good old boy system where somebody scratches my back and I'll scratch yours a little bit further down the road, and we'll all get rich off of taxpayer money. And that's what this is. So the Republicans that are supporting this, they either agree with that or they just haven't thought it through. So let me see here. The left's gradual plan for socialized medicine. Will Arkansas wake up? Some who claim to be on the right want to surrender and accept the left's false premise that more welfare leads to prosperity. It doesn't. It doesn't. The next time somebody says that, ask them, then if that's the truth, why don't we put everybody on it? Or maybe, I write, those on the, quote, right, end quote, have been convinced of the left's humanitarian soft tyranny, where we all are born enslaved to one another. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to play Ronald Reagan. I'm going to play this clip from 1961, where Ronald Reagan was just getting involved in the limited government movement, where he worked there for decades before becoming the President of the United States, advocating for smaller limited government, less big government. But this is really this goes out, in all seriousness, this goes out to Governor Asa Hutchinson. This goes out to all of you out there who are listening and think that those of us on the far right, as you would call us, are not full of common sense, are not compassionate. This goes out to you. And if you disagree with Reagan, if you disagree with what Reagan is saying here and you say that doesn't apply to what Arkansas is facing, I would respectfully ask you to change parties so that the people will truly know where you stand. Because enough is enough. Listen to Ronald Reagan from 1961.
One of the traditional methods of imposing statism or socialism on a people has been by way of medicine. It's very easy to disguise a medical program as a humanitarian project. Most people are a little reluctant to oppose anything that suggests medical care for people who possibly can't afford it. Now, the American people, if you put it to them about socialized medicine and gave them a chance to choose, would unhesitatingly vote against it. We had an example of this under the Truman administration. It was proposed that we have a compulsory health insurance program for all people in the United States, and of course the American people unhesitatingly rejected this. So, with the American people on record as not wanting socialized medicine, Congressman Farrand introduced the Farrand Bill. This was the idea that all people of Social Security age should be brought under a program of compulsory health insurance. Now, this would not only be our senior citizens, this would be the dependents and those who are disabled. This would be young people if they are dependents of someone eligible for Social Security.
For those of you who want to know, the word compulsory means required by law or rule, obligatory, meaning an individual mandate. Just wanted to point that out. This is in 1961.
Now, Congressman Farrand brought the program out on that idea of just for that particular group of people. But Congressman Farrand was subscribing to this foot-in-the-door philosophy because he said, if we can only break through and get our foot inside the door, then we can expand the program after that. It is presented in the idea of a great emergency that millions of our senior citizens are unable to provide needed medical care. Now, the advocates of this bill, when you try to oppose it, challenge you on an emotional basis. They say, what would you do, throw these poor old people out to die with no medical attention? That's ridiculous, and of course, no one has advocated it.
Yes, but we're going to start hearing, I promise we will start hearing this argument. Not necessarily elderly people, but the new welfare class for able-bodied adults. If in fact, there is a legitimate effort to stop more Obamacare or Arkansas Works Obamacare or whatever in the legislature, you will start to hear about, I can't believe you're going to throw all these people out on the street. I mean, it's going to be it's going to be what the left is supposed to do. And if you have people that really understand conservatism, they will have no problem going out and answering as many questions as they can. Grows government, increases dependency on government, so it's not really humanitarian. It's not really helping the people you're claiming to help because it's keeping them and it's giving them an incentive to stay where they are. Spends money we do not have as well.
Now, what reason could the other people have for backing a bill which says we insist on compulsory health insurance for senior citizens on a basis of age alone, regardless of whether they are worth millions of dollars, whether they have an income, whether they're protected by their own insurance, whether they have savings?
This, again, one of the waivers Governor Hutchinson wanted was a way to asset test. Guess what? He abandoned that idea. It's a non-starter. Don't you see that we are implementing the Democrat playbook here in Arkansas? And the Democrats are laughing and they're snickering because It's the Republicans that are doing it, or it's people that claim to be Republicans who are doing this. It's people who are claiming to be Republicans who are doing this. And if I was affiliated with the Republican Party, or I worked for the Republican Party of Arkansas, or and I like Chairman Doyle Webb, I think he's a really nice guy, but I don't know how he does it. I mean, you know what I mean? I don't know how he there's rules about you can't speak, or, whatever, but I don't know how he does. I don't know how he watches what's going on here. He's a stronger man than me. I couldn't do it without saying, you guys are not Republicans. When you're abandoning our key principles for hospitals, lobbyists, and insurance companies? Will anybody in Arkansas start stopping this? That's my question, and I hope the answer is yes.
I think we could be excused for believing that, as ex-Congressman Ferrand said, this was simply an excuse to bring about what they wanted all the time, socialized medicine. James Madison, in 1788, speaking to the Virginia Convention, said, "Since the general civilization of mankind, I believe there are more instances of the abridgment of the freedom of the people by gradual and silent encroachment of those in power than by violent and sudden usurpations."
It's gradual. How do you think we got from the airport lines to the TSA putting their hands down your pants? You think that happened overnight? Imagine if they tried to do that to somebody from the greatest generation. I mean, imagine if the greatest generation were back in their 18-year-old bodies and dropped here and went through a TSA line. Just imagine for a second. It would be complete chaos because it's a gradual cycle. There's a psychological element between, and that's what they've tried to do. And this is why it's so imperative. But they don't care. They don't care. Some of these Arkansas Republicans, if we keep going down this road, they're going to be in nursing homes reading about how they destroyed this state in the newspaper eventually. 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And it's ridiculous. It just makes me so upset because they don't, it's like you hear the wisdom of Ronald Reagan and what we know, and you guys just say, well, there's nothing we can do about it. I'm just a state representative, or I'm just we need the money. We got to take the money. Man, do you want socialism? Do you want socializing? I mean, I don't get it. I mean, I understand how it's happening. I understand the pomp and circumstance of the Marble Palace, the Little Rock Nest. I understand the lobbyists and special interests, everybody. I understand you have to stand up to that, and that's the reason you have people that are weak. But I don't know, when you go home, and when you still consider yourself a, quote, Republican, end quote, and you go read the Republican Party platform, I just don't see. I don't see how you can continue to do this and masquerade. Is what it is. Masquerade around as someone who wants what the people of Arkansas want. The last thing he says.
They want to attach this bill to Social Security. And they say, here is a great insurance program now instituted, now working.
Okay, now I'm going to stop there. I wanted to leave you here. You hear what he said. They on this particular bill back in the 60s, they want to attach this bill to Social Security. Here's a great program. Isn't it working? This is exactly what Obama did with Medicaid. Here's a program. We're just going to expand it. Now, there's a slight difference in how Arkansas has handled it because Arkansas is now saying, well, we'll expand the program, but we'll expand government now and shrink it later through these great, fantastic, whimsical reforms. And we're going to show the Democrats how to really run big government. We're going to show them that we can do it better, that we can drive the big government bus better, the big Cadillac, it's like a stretch Escalade limo is what it is. We can do it better than them. That is what they're saying now. It's a slight difference, but it's the same idea. The left's goal is the same. It's more government, more dependency. And they may not understand themselves because they've bought their own humanitarian bullcrap, but it eventually means less freedom.